Alrighty, what's going on, everybody? I'm back with another podcast. Today we're doing Coach Todd McGhghy from Des Moines Roosevelt. And just in case you're wondering, I've been doing a lot of coaching and teaching because that's what be going into. So I'm trying to soak up as much knowledge from good teachers and coaches as I possibly can. And Todd McGhgy's next on the list. So with that being said, I'll kind of let him introduce himself, and we'll go from there.
Well, that's my name. Sam introduced me. I'm currently teaching special education and currently the defensive coordinator at Des Moines Roosevelt High School. And I also am an assistant track coach, and I coach the throwers. And I'm also a middle school boys basketball coach. And this year was an exciting year. Football-wise, we made the playoffs for the first time in 20-some years, and we got a lot of key returners coming back. We opened up with Dowling, who ended up being the state championship team. The first round of the playoffs, we played them. And so got a lot to build on and a lot of excitement in the community and that sort of thing. Then our middle school basketball team went undefeated. I don't think we really good players. And then track came, and I was excited about that. We had some really good throwers, and then the coronavirus hit. My background is fairly unique. My philosophies about coaching are fairly unique, probably not the most popular, and we can touch on that later. But essentially, I started my coaching career as a student coach at Western Illinois University. And from there, I became an assistant high school coach in Keokuk as a defensive coordinator. Spent 2 or 3 years there. I can't remember. And then I went to the University of Central Arkansas in Conway, Arkansas as a defensive line and linebacker coach. At that time, I had only had one child. And so we were making it work, but it wasn't really working that great with the salary that I was earning and the benefits. And so moved back, and I was the head coach at Camp Point, Illinois, for 2 seasons. Then became the defensive coordinator at Iowa Wesleyan College. The head coach left in spring, and I became the head coach. And then from there, I went to Fort Madison. I was there 7 years, I believe. And I think that I tallied it up. And between Fort Madison and Iowa Wesleyan, I think that they have had 18 different, I can't remember the number. I'd have to get the stats, but I think they average like a new head coach between the two of them every 2 years. I think between the two schools, there have been 16 different head coaches in 20 years. So there's not a lot of stability there. We had some success at Camp Point. We had the only winning season the school had ever had in the history of the school. We had the only playoff appearance that the school had ever had. Then we went to Iowa Wesleyan, and that place has a history of sustained and horrible success, and changed me as a person as well as a coach. And it was hard to overcome that. Fort Madison, we still have the only winning season that they've had in going on 20 years, I believe. And so going back to my philosophies, there's certain places, your philosophy, your whatever, they just don't fit. It doesn't make anybody right, doesn't make anybody wrong. I just don't fit. But at the same time, faith, family, and football are important to me. So there was no way I was going to uproot my family and move while my son and my daughter were still in high school. I don't think that's fair to them. If I can provide a living, so I sat out of coaching for 4 years waiting for my son and my daughter to graduate. And that was a great time for me because I was so afraid the game would pass me by. But it really didn't, because I stayed involved probably more than I do when I'm actually coaching.
Okay.
So once my daughter graduated, I was like, okay, I'm free to go.
Yeah.
So I left.
Yeah. Sweet. Yeah, maybe we'll touch on that time period a little bit here in a minute, but kind of going back to when you very first into college, did you always plan to be a teacher? I know football is a huge part of your life, and we'll talk about that a little bit, but did you always kind of plan to be a coach, and then teaching kind of came along with it, and that was the perfect job to get into, to be a coach?
I think that family situation was the primary, if I'm understanding your question, the primary motivation for me to get out of college coaching and go back to high school coaching is probably motivated by the way I grew up. I didn't have a whole lot of stability growing up. And if you know what I know about college coaching, you're constantly moving. You look at someone like Kirk Ferentz, who at the University of Iowa. You know, I know that, well, I love the guy, but a lot of people don't like him or whatever. He's been here a long time, and it's hard for people to understand that he's moved his family 14 times.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait a minute, he's been somewhere other than Iowa? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So probably the main thing, I'm not going to lie, and this is probably an unpopular opinion, but my main motivation was to get back into coaching at the high school level, just for a little bit more stability for my family, because there's no way we're moving as much as the typical coach does. It's
Yeah.
not going to, college coach.
Yeah. And what got you interested in football? Do you remember a time when you were maybe a kid that you saw somebody playing football, or has it just always been part of your life, or did you make the decision to try it out at one point in time?
Just sports in general was, I actually liked basketball way more than I liked football. I loved playing it, but at the end of the day, I was offered a full ride scholarship in football, not basketball. But I loved playing basketball way more than I loved playing football. But just being sports minded and being competitive and that sort of thing, and going off and playing college football and having success, and then having some NFL tryouts and stuff like that. That was always really attractive to me. But I can't really pinpoint. I just love competing, and I love sports in general. So football just happened to fall in that realm.
Yeah. So maybe talk a little bit about what football and basketball and any sport has done for your life in general.
Well, in high school, I was actually directed by I grew up alone, grew up pretty much by myself. I was by myself, and I was in and out of juvenile court, and I was actually ordered to take a football scholarship. I didn't want to. I wanted to roam around Davenport and the Quad Cities where I grew up, rocking my mullet and drinking a 40, getting in fights, and getting in a lot of fights and doing stupid stuff. A judge actually ordered me to take a football scholarship, and it was amazing. Once I had a roof over my head and food on a table, that's all I needed. And then from that point forward, I was on the dean's list, and I was lucky to graduate high school. But it's amazing what those simple things you provide a human being, and they'll be able to somewhat thrive. So
yeah. So obviously, have you always, besides this last year, have you always taught social studies in high school?
Actually, my first high school teaching job was Fort Madison, and I actually went there as a dean of students.
Okay.
And then from there, I just evolved back into the classroom. They were making some cuts, and they wanted to just have one administrator instead of a dean of students. And so they put me back in the classroom, and I evolved into the behavioral sciences guy, sociology and psychology.
Yeah.
And that in college, when you're growing up, you don't really know when things aren't right. It took getting an education for me to reflect back and go, man, and maybe look at things in the eyes of an outsider looking at my life going, that was pretty messed up. And so when that happened, that got me motivated to think about, society and sociology and that sort of thing. And so that quickly became in college my second passion, sports, and then, sociology and psychology, the behavioral sciences.
Yeah. So then going to Des Moines Roosevelt, was making the switch to a special education setting, was that difficult?
I'm not going to lie. I first went up there thinking, I'll take any job y'all can give me. I just got to get out of here.
Yeah.
That is what it is. But now, oh my gosh, I wish I'd have done this years ago, because at the end of the day, I have a passion for the less popular kids. I have a passion for those kids who are perceived as nobodies. I have a passion for working for those kids who, their parents, I'm not going to be with the haves and the have-nots down at the yacht club smoking and joking.
Yeah.
My passion is working with the kids who are perceived as nobodies. And in special ed, there are no question, there are some empirical diagnoses and things like that. But so much of what they are, so many of their disabilities were driven by their environment that I feel like I can really offer something to those kids. So no, it was a huge blessing, huge. I wish I'd done it years ago.
Yeah. I know you're big into like the like psychology and sociology, and this is kind of an off question, but what's your opinion on the whole nurture versus nature thing? Do you think it's way more nurture than nature in terms of behavior and stuff like that?
Yeah. Okay. Now we're getting deep.
Yeah.
I do. I'm more, there's no question. It's really tough for me to teach and talk about psychology, separate from sociology.
Yeah.
Because, I don't totally agree with, a lot of the theories of psychology. I think most things are environmentally influenced. However, now you're going to get me going real deep. But I do think that those environmental influences can become biological and genetic.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. For example, no different, and this might sound crazy, but no different than, say, diabetes or alcohol, no different than those things being genetic and biological in nature. I also think sociological phenomena that we describe as functional versus, dysfunctional, such as, financial matters. I think those traits, maintaining relationships, I think those traits are also in a roundabout way passed along biologically and chemically as well.
Yeah.
I think that there's a genetic predisposition for people who come from divorced homes to be more likely to get a divorce. And a lot of people go, what? Wait a minute. Sorry, I guess you're just going to have to disagree. But so that's that.
Yeah, they're kind of, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head that they really are kind of tied in together almost. Yes. in a way.
Absolutely. Psychosocial.
Yeah. So your coaching philosophy, faith, family, football, that's what it is. Has that changed over time?
Well, I don't know if that's my philosophy. That's how I approach life.
Yeah.
Number one to me is my faith. Number two is my family. And number three is football.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's that. A lot of people will put that maybe on a wall or something, but that's really true to me. I was not going to move my family. I was not going to give my wife an ultimatum.
Yeah.
We're moving or we're getting a divorce. That wasn't going to happen. So that was just my life outlook in terms of priority. Now my coaching philosophy is totally different than that. And
Okay.
it's pretty unpopular, very
Okay.
unpopular. And that is, I want to win.
Yeah.
Sorry. I don't know. And I sure throw out your coaching cliches. They won't care how much you win they don't know how much you care until you care how much you know, blah, blah, blah. I get all that. And that is true. But at the end of the day, I think that if, you don't have to agree, that's not a problem. It's just, I want to win a state championship. I want to prepare players to be the best they can be, demand of them in a way that makes them elite and championship level material. I don't know how to go, well, that's probably not going to happen. Well, then I don't know how to coach that way.
Yeah.
Hey, you need to chill out a little bit because you're not going to win a state championship. I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
I don't want to know how to do that.
Yeah. And
so a lot of times I'm not the most received philosophically. When it comes to relationships, I think relationships are built on working hard together to achieve a common goal.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. You're building, like, you're there for a reason, and the reason is to win at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yep.
And then what comes along with that is building relationships and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, and that's just my philosophy. You'd be surprised how many people would say, no, that's not what we want. And that's okay. It's not about who's right or who's wrong. It's about being the genuine you. And the genuine me is I want to try to demand of people and be in a place where we can develop young men to be elite level men and football players at a championship level that are go on to be great fathers, great husbands, and and all that stuff. But I want it to be at an elite level. But there are a number of places that now just make sure they're having fun and make sure they like you and stuff like that. That's totally cool. I'm not one to pass judgment. That's just not for me. Okay. I mean, that's not for me at all. Yeah. I'm not that person.
All right.
I yell a lot.
What is your what would you say is a good memory that pops in your head over your entire coaching career?
Oh man, good memory. To be honest, the good memories are the people that, it's just it's almost like you envy some of the kids that had such an incredible work ethic that you had really nothing to do with. Okay. I think of a kid like Tamim Yayawi, who's now an orthopedic surgeon in Missouri. Just the incredible work ethic that he had, it was just unreal. Like, holy smokes, this kid is a machine. And he still has it. And, I suppose I'm supposed to tweet about it and talk about how we grinded together or some bullshit like that. But no, I didn't have anything to do with that.
Yeah.
Okay. He's appreciative, and I just those people, that's probably my most fondest memory. This year, walking out on the field, get ready to play Dowling and making history. That's a great memory. Making the playoffs for the first time in the history of the school at Camp Point was awesome. Having the first winning season at Fort Madison in a long time was awesome, even though we should have been 7-2 that year, but we didn't play. Our 3 of our 4 losses were against Washington, Pella, Oskaloosa. I can't remember who, but man, we should have been 7-2 that year. But those were great memories. Winning.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess I'm a bad person. I don't
know. So what would you say to a kid that's listening to this? It could be, I know there's not, I don't think, is there any youth football going on anymore? Is that like kind of by the wayside nowadays?
I don't know. I hope it is. Because,
yeah.
It's sad that I say that. I think they just need to go to flag.
Yeah.
You need to go to flag because, if you think about it, what other sport, maybe wrestling, maybe wrestling, a bad coach in wrestling at a young age, but I mean, if you have a bad coach in basketball, he's just going to throw out a ball and you're going to play. What damage can be done? You have a bad coach in a combative sport like wrestling or a combative sport like football, that kid ain't ever coming back, ever. And not so much with wrestling. Yeah, wrestling too, but football, you have so many moving parts. The
Yeah.
likelihood of some guy who busts his butt at a construction company or at a factory working his tail off all day, the likelihood of him having extreme knowledge of all of those things and being able to assemble a staff required to safely and effectively coach a youth level football team is highly unlikely. You know, um, I just think they need to go back to flag.
Yeah.
I would tell a kid, go do flag, because more than likely you're going to go up against you're scared to death. I was an All-American linebacker that had NFL tryouts, and I'm going to go ahead and tell you that the first day I put on pads, I looked for every excuse not to go to practice. I was scared to death, and I just had a group of friends that did it, and I thought, well, they're doing it, so I'll do it too. But, I mean, in today's society, with all the stuff out there, if I were a mom, heck, even a dad, I'm not sure I would push it on my kid.
Yeah.
So go play flag.
Yeah.
Seriously.
What is well, I guess, to put it bluntly, do you want to be a head football coach again? And that could be
No.
you do not want to be at the high school or the college level?
No. That stuff is not for me. If a high school coach would hire a person to follow me around and speak for me, I might be able to do it.
Okay.
Because my passion is not kissing babies and making sure the right people of influence are happy. I'm not good at the politics at all. I don't want him to. My passion is the X's and O's, on the field coaching and that sort of thing. We have
Okay.
an awesome head coach right now that believes in me and, sits in our meetings and doesn't really say a word. Every now and then he'll get some clarity, or every now and then he'll say, that's not the way I would do that. But, it's just so awesome. I don't have to set up. I don't have to order equipment. I don't have to talk to an angry parent.
Yeah.
I don't have to do any of that crap. And I love it. So no.
Yeah.
Head coaching sucks.
Yeah. So you're obviously you're really, really happy at Roosevelt, as you should be, because you guys you're building good things there. But say down the line, maybe whether it be 10, 15 years, would you consider going back to college?
Probably not. Probably not. The recruiting right now, it's changed a lot, because recruiting isn't about getting in a car and going finding players anymore. That's not what the recruiting is. When I coached in college, that's what it was. It was about grabbing VHS tapes, bringing them back and showing the head coach on Sunday night meetings. This is this guy, here's this guy, here's this guy. Now that's all a click of a mouse. So now the name of the game, recruiting, is, going out on the road and building relationships with coaches and building relationships with kids. And I mean, I'm no spring chicken, but if I was to go back to college, it would have to be a coaching situation where, I probably wouldn't want to do a lot of the recruiting, because I'm not good at blowing you up on Twitter.
Yeah.
I just really love the X's and O's side of football, and I want to devise schemes to help us win and let someone else come get the right types of players for us and do all that other stuff.
Okay. So would you say where you're at right now in terms of being a defensive coordinator, which is obviously what what you love to do, and then being at Roosevelt. Do you think this is your perfect coaching job right now? In your head, if you had to picture a perfect coaching job, would it be where you're at right now?
Yes, with the current head coach I'm under. But, I was just talking to someone a few minutes ago. I love Des Moines so much that I wouldn't have to coach. I don't fit with just anybody. In fact, sometimes my head coach now, sometimes I think he probably shakes his head like, God, this dude's nuts. But I mean, a lot of it is just Des Moines. I just love Des Moines. I don't have to coach. If my head coach went somewhere, I'm sure he'd ask me to go with him. And if it wasn't a place that I was interested in, and Roosevelt hired somebody that I didn't agree with, I'm totally at peace with not coaching at all, as long as I'm in Des Moines, because I love it up there. It's awesome.
Okay, sweet.
But yeah, right now it's perfect, as long as my head coach doesn't leave.
All right, sweet.
And I don't see that happening.
So is there any final things you want to throw out there, or any last minute thoughts? Or
I can't think of anything. I just wish this whole stuff, this Corona stuff, would go away.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to kind of talk about a little bit too. What is do you think it's going to be? Is it looking good for the season to happen with everything going on?
Who knows? It's a lot like people who say they have two quarterbacks. Well, you probably have no quarterback.
Yeah.
There are so many theories out there that at the end of the day, the only thing you can conclude is probably that no one really knows.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know what to believe anymore. And once it becomes political, that's kind of how it works.
Yeah.
There's, people just, their leadership goes, once their trust is gone, trust and faith is gone. Once something becomes political. And if you think about it, it's kind of supposed to be the opposite. We would like our real world problems to be solved by our government. I think that's to me, that's what our government's supposed to be there for. But why all of a sudden, when it becomes political, if faith and trust is gone? There are people who, definitely the conspiracy theories now, the Democrats did it, the Republicans did it. Faith and trust. Heck, there are people who believe there's not even a virus anymore.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's just, once it becomes political, it's gone. And I just think that's such an interesting paradox, because last I checked, complex issues like this, the government is supposed to provide us comfort that we're going to take care of it and be all right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's about it. Well, let's hope that it happens, because I'm anxious to see your opening game against freaking Valley. Or
yeah. Our head coach, man, he's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're going to right off the bat. We already had Dowling on our schedule. The state mandated, and then you get to pick your other four opponents. You get to submit who you'd like to play, and right off the bat, he's like, "Guys, I just want you to know that I'm picking Valley." Well, okay. Sounds like a plan.
Yeah. So with that being said, I think that's about it. I'll let you go ahead and you can plug anything, your Twitter, anything like that, and I can leave it in the video description box.
Oh, I don't even know what they are. What do you mean plug it? Like tell you what my handle is?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's at capital TODD _ capital M, small c, capital G, small h, small g, small h, small y. You're probably going to be bored to death.
Hey, I'll leave it in the chat box.
I don't. I try to be funny on there more than anything. You won't see me with, I don't know. I don't know. I don't really understand. I guess I'm a bad Twitterer.
All righty. Well, thank you for coming on, and that was Coach Todd McGhghy from Des Moines Roosevelt.